Hello and welcome to Act 1, Scene 7. Our key question today is, what makes Macbeth and Lady Macbeth carry through the plot to kill Duncan? At the beginning of this scene, we find Macbeth speaking a soliloquy. As you know, a soliloquy is the character's real thoughts communicated directly to the audience. So we find Macbeth making a list of all the reasons he should not kill Duncan. Examine what those are. First, let's look at Macbeth's objections. He notices that he should not kill Duncan because he is Duncan's host. This chucks us straight into the world of Greek tragedy. In the world of the Greeks, it was far more important to be a good host than almost any other feature of society. For example, Hercules killed his wife and children in a hallucination, and he was not punished with death. He was simply given 12 labours that he had to carry out over 12 years. Tantalus, on the other hand, abused Zeus's hospitality and was condemned to torture for eternity, forever. Shakespeare does this again to cast Macbeth as the hero of a tragedy in the Aristotelian tradition. But unlike the Greeks, Shakespeare is really interested in Macbeth's psychology, and we uncover that through his choice of imagery. He talks about pity striding the blast like a newborn babe. Well, we should know now that this is because he has just lost a child. He's full of grief, and that gives us a motive for why he's suddenly overcome with bloodlust. It's almost as though he has a revenge against fate, a revenge against destiny, and if you like, in the Christian sense, a revenge against God. How could God do this to me? He seems to be asking. Shakespeare helps us make that connection when Macbeth leaps from the newborn babe to heaven's cherubim. The cherubim are the little angels, you know, the Cupid. Again, from Greek culture, incorporated into Christian tradition, these little baby angels. But Shakespeare is therefore saying Macbeth blames God. These are heaven's little babies. They're still alive while his baby is not. And then look at how he describes them, travelling on sightless couriers of air. Sightless. Who controls the winds? Who controls the fates? A sightless God. So Macbeth directly accuses God here of losing sight of what he should be, which is good. Instead, he sees God as like the Greek gods, who interfered in humans' lives, who had no sense of morality. They didn't care what happened to people. People were a sideshow, an entertainment. And so Macbeth is accusing his own Christian God of being just as brutal as the pagan gods. He wants revenge. Killing Duncan will be that revenge because in the great chain of being and through the divine right of kings, we understand that the king is appointed by God. Therefore, Macbeth attacks God by attacking his appointed king, Duncan. So now, part of his Hamartia does not seem to be ambition, but revenge against an unjust God. Well, I hear you argue, there is ambition as Hamartia. It's in your very next quotation, Mr. Salles. I have no spur to prick the size of my intent, save vaulting ambition. There it is, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other side. So yes, okay, it's ambition, but let's see what ambition is here. He imagines ambition as a horse. Macbeth's intent is his ambition. He is the horse, and he wants a spur. In other words, he needs a rider to prick him with the spur so that he can jump. But look what happens when he jumps. He realises that he will fall. So right at the moment when he's imagining killing Duncan, he knows that it's going to lead to this metaphorical fall. He will fail. And so he's not going to do it. He's not going to go through it. He lacks the prick to spur his intent. But what is that spur? Well, it's going to be Lady Macbeth. So in this metaphor, Lady Macbeth is riding him. Now, there is an ounce of sexuality in that metaphor, I'll give you that. But what Macbeth is getting at here is that he needs his wife's influence in order to go through with the killing. So this great long list of why he shouldn't kill Duncan is merely a first step, a negotiating tactic to bring to Lady Macbeth, because he knows that she will be the spur who makes him go ahead with it. It's just like his letter earlier in the act. He wants her to convince him to kill. So she is not really his Hamartia. It's his own desire to meet his fate, even though that will lead to failure. Now again, this is an attack on the patriarchal society. It's no accident that Macbeth chooses the word prick. Prick has sexual connotations in Shakespeare's time. We'll see that in the quotation from Romeo and Juliet. Prick love for pricking, says Mercutio. So pricking as in hurting, but also prick love, the obvious sexual connotations, which I won't go into here because it's a family show. But Shakespeare did. So Macbeth deliberately emasculates himself, makes himself less male, and he makes the female Lady Macbeth his rider and characterises her with the prick to spur him on. He therefore makes her masculine, which echoes exactly the language that she uses earlier in the play to be unsexed. Macbeth's point is that this society only rewards masculine behaviour, and therefore to become a powerful woman, to become an independent woman, Lady Macbeth must become male, metaphorically speaking. This is the way he criticises what society does to women. Now Lady Macbeth reacts swiftly and cleverly, and she immediately focuses in on his love for her, the love that was revealed in his letter that called her my dearest partner in greatness. But look what she does. She uses the word thy and thou. Yes, that is familiar, but as you remember, it is a familiar form which also reduces the listener's status. She's reducing Macbeth to a lower status than her. Remember, he is the horse, she is the rider. So she's asking him to prove his love, but also saying that his refusal makes him inferior, less of a man. Now you'll be familiar with the idea that this is a martial society, one ruled by the warrior class. Macbeth wishes to keep his status within that class, and so she now picks on his emotions as a warrior. She refers to his valour and she accuses him of being afeared. Fear is the enemy of the warrior culture, and so she reminds him that he needs to show bravery in this society. She lowers his status still further by referring to the great chain of being and saying, "What beast was it then that made you break this enterprise to me?" The beast, of course, is right at the base of the chain of being. She does this to strip away all of his status and to show that by not fulfilling his promise to her, he has reduced himself to something less than human. Now notice when she accuses him of being a beast and at the very lowest status, she flips from thou to you. Because when she uses you, she reminds him of the status that he should have. So you can see there's a really clever contrast going on here, accusing him of being like a beast, reminding him of being like a king. We now come to the most stunning part of her outburst. Now the key to understanding it is to come to the bottom of it. Had I so sworn as you had done to this? It's like a contract. And she's arguing that if she had promised Macbeth to kill their child, she would have gone through with it. That's how serious the promise is. Now, psychologically, choosing the example of their dead child exactly hits the mark. Macbeth is overwhelmed by grief at this death, as we've seen in his attack on heaven's cherubim. Lady Macbeth, of course, is overcome by grief. This is why she became unsexed. Again, an attack against her own motherhood. She doesn't want to go through that pain again. And this is the final argument that convinces Macbeth to go through with the regicide. This violent image of dashing the baby's brains out is actually a bloodthirsty image. It's to tap into Macbeth's bloodlust. Now, it's probably really important to understand something about the staging of this scene. When Macbeth arrives after the letter has come, Shakespeare could introduce the letter to buy time for Macbeth to change out of his battle clothes and his armour, which would be bloodstained, into something more suitable to receiving King Duncan and meeting his wife. That would be logical. However, Shakespeare doesn't have that intention, and we know that because of the next scene when Duncan arrives and asks to be conducted to mine host. He's upset that Macbeth isn't there. Macbeth would have to be there to greet his king. The only reason he isn't there is that the character needs time to change out of his bloody clothes. This means that Macbeth has arrived covered in blood when he first meets Lady Macbeth and they first talk about killing Duncan. It means that there is a visual representation on stage of his bloodlust. And that allows her psychological insight that it is the bloodlust, Macbeth's desire to kill, which she must tap into. And she realizes that desire to kill will be stronger than his desire not to go against God and not to kill the king. Next, Macbeth has one final doubt. If we should fail? And her reply is, we fail. This echoes the ambition which overleaps itself and falls on the other side, the failure. Lady Macbeth says, well, then we fail. It's worth attempting to get the prize, even if we fail doing it. This removes Macbeth's fear of failure. Perhaps it's because she emphasises the personal pronoun we. They are in this together. She is once more my dearest partner in greatness. You'll also notice the syllables. So I had done to this matches the syllable pattern that Macbeth gives us, if we should fail, which then matches her syllable pattern, we fail. 10 syllables in perfect iambic pentameter, showing that they are both totally united. They are true partners, reflected in the iambic pentameter of the lines they share. Look what she says to him next. What cannot you and I perform upon the unguarded Duncan? Look at that verb, perform. She does mean an element of performance. You and I, they are going to do it together, a true partnership. Remember, there are 2 daggers. This implies they will have one each. They're not simply going to execute Duncan. That would not satisfy him. This has to be a frenzied attack because that will satisfy his bloodlust. So 2 daggers will be used, and at this stage Lady Macbeth imagines performing the regicide with him. And so part of the seduction, if you like, is that this is a partnership between husband and wife, something that they will share intimately and horrifically together. And Macbeth is totally persuaded by this partnership, this masculine partnership of cruelty that she proposes. He says, bring forth men children only. A brutal mother who's therefore only going to give birth to boys, but he calls them men because he envisages them as warriors in this warrior society. This is Shakespeare's clue that the real problem here is the society which has formed him and rewarded him. It's the martial warrior culture that celebrates killing. And remember, that's a political message to King James, not to reinvent that sort of society, to turn away from a military dictatorship and have something much more benign, kind and helpful to the people. You need a lift, do you?
Video.
Yeah, do you want to be in the video? I'm going to leave you in. I'll have some outtakes with you at the back.
Yes.
You're scrounging a lift. Do you need it now?
No.
When
I
do
need
you...
it for, let me just check the train time. I'm getting a slightly earlier train because
You've got more interviews.
loads of them are getting cancelled.
Oh,
so
yeah.
They're just running like one in every 3 trains or something.
What have you got in your hair?
Probably dandruff, mate, isn't it?
Dandruff.
Well, it's like cocaine, isn't it? Funny story from Liam Gallagher. It was like the first time they played Glastonbury. He was like, I've got people look going, he's got cocaine in his hair. It's just my psoriasis. People picking it up. He was like, I went back to the dressing room and I was like, look, might as well give it a go, see if it is. 10 to 5, the worst time.
Yeah, that is bad, isn't it? So what time do you need me?
Well, let's leave at, it's past ambitious.
Yes. 20 past.
20 past.
Right.
Blimey.
So come and
Governor.
knock for me at 15:15.
Okay.
Right.
He's all money!
Oh, you